All righty. Hi, everyone. Hello, it looks like we are live. This is very, very exciting. Hi, hello, welcome. I am going to mute myself so there are no echoes. Hi, hello, it's so good to see you or virtually see you all. Welcome to this live stream. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll just give folks maybe about a minute or so to join in, and then we can go ahead and get started. All right, hi. I hope you all can hear me okay. If you cannot, please say something in the chat and I will do something to hopefully fix that problem. Alrighty, hello. All right. So let's just go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jen Cormier, and I am the Visitor Programs Manager at the Seymour Marine Discovery Center. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Seymour Center's Labside Chats. Oh, hello. This program is an opportunity to have a short, engaging discussion with a scientist from UC Santa Cruz and Long Marine Lab. We are so pleased to continually virtually show you how scientific research plays in the conservation of the world's oceans, even during this time of sheltering in place. I am so excited for today's program because I have the honor of talking to and asking questions to Dr. Dan Costa. This is a very, very exciting time for me, so I'm hoping that it's also very exciting for you too. Before we dive in, I just want to say thank you to everyone who submitted questions in advance for Dan. Hopefully we'll have the opportunity to get through them all, but you all did submit quite a bit, so hopefully we'll be able to get through them all. And if you do have any questions during our chat today, don't hesitate to go ahead and write them in the live comments, and hopefully we'll be able to get to those as well. And so Dan is here today. Dan is the director of the Institute of Marine Sciences. He is a distinguished professor of ecology and evolutionary biology, and an internationally recognized expert on the physiology, ecology, and behavior of marine mammals. And so Dan is here today. I'm so excited. I think most of you right now are seeing me on the screen talking, and you also see a really interesting slideshow that's taking place. And this slideshow was put together by Dan himself, and it's actually a collection of photos from his research starting as a Ph.D. candidate, postdoc, all the way up until pretty much now. So there's a great collection of photos being displayed during our conversation. But Dan, welcome.
I'm glad to be here. It's really looking forward to this.
Well, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
Good. It's the sun is out. It's a beautiful day. We're all inside though.
We're all inside though, yes, but your pictures are doing a really great job of taking us out of, outside of our homes and into the field. It looks absolutely amazing. So Dan, I said earlier that you are an expert, you're internationally recognized as someone who knows so much about marine mammals and their physiology, their ecology, their behavior. And I'm just curious if you could break that down a little bit more for us. So if you were at a dinner party, how would you explain to someone what your research is about?
I'd say basically two things, and I talk about it in terms of how animals work. And what really got me excited into doing the kind of work I do is trying to figure out how animals survive where they do. What are the special adaptations? What are the special tricks, whether it's behavior, physiology, or anatomy, that they've developed to live in the environments? And these can be typically extreme environments, whether it's the really warm, hot environment of the Galapagos or the really extreme cold of Antarctica. So it's really about how animals work. And then the other thing is how they feed and where they go to feed. What is it about the ocean environment where are they? How do they go about finding their resources? And how do they make a living, basically?
Yeah, definitely. And so that's so incredible. And so have you always been interested in the behavior and the feeding and the physiology of marine mammals? Have you always been interested in their biology or the science?
No, I mean, it's ironic. I got into biology in high school. I learned how to scuba dive when I was taking high school biology, and it was sort of like, okay, the lights went on. I got every book and everything you could buy back then and read Light's Manual and Between Pacific Tides. And I actually wanted to be a marine invertebrate ecologist. And I took all the invert zoo classes at UCLA where I was an undergraduate. But, you know, this is the importance of mentors. This is the importance of people who in your career help you. And I didn't have very good instructors back then in terms of invertebrate zoology, but I had an outstanding instructor on vertebrate biology and vertebrate adaptations, how organisms adapt to their environment. Ironically, when I was a graduate student, John Pierce and Todd Newberry taught invert zoo. I TA'd it for them, and that's the way they taught invertebrate zoology. So if I had been an undergraduate at UC Santa Cruz, I probably would be a classical marine ecologist. But instead, I took this amazing course on vertebrate biology. And then I ran into a guy, took animal physiology from a guy named Ken Nagy, who's now retired at UCLA. He was a junior faculty. And that was the first time I ever got the best grade on a final and one of the best grades in a class. And I said, okay, I want to do physiology. Mammalian physiology was really the most interesting, but I wanted to stay in the marine system. So that's why I ended up with marine mammals. And of course, as anybody's career always takes twists and turns, I just wanted to study these animals for understanding how they work, how they live. And then the rest just, you sort of develop different tools, different expertise. I was a graduate student with Ken Norris, who was, you know, one of the major players in the marine mammal field. I was a postdoc with Jerry Koyman at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and Jerry studied diving physiology and was developing all kinds of new tools and approaches. And so throughout my career, you know, I just can't understate the importance of mentors and colleagues. And I always say one of the things I've enjoyed most about my career is not only what I've done, but the people I've worked with.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, having such great mentors is just so important. And so throughout your career, what advice do you have for a aspiring young scientist who wants to dive into the world of either, you know, marine mammals or maybe even invertebrates, right?
Right.
So what advice do you have for them as they are starting their career and something that they're looking forward to?
You know, really, it's you got to follow your passion. I just continued to, I never exactly knew where I was going to go, but I always had a goal that was just beyond. I mean, when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to go to college. When I was in college, I knew I wanted to go to graduate school. I didn't have it all figured out in terms of I wanted to go to graduate school and work on this project and this project. But at each point, I was looking just beyond the next, and I had goals that I was working towards. But you can't do this without being passionate. You can't do this because there are so many twists and turns and so many disappointments that we all see in life. You've got to have something that you want to do, something that fulfills you. And so there's no formula, there's no magic pattern. You just have to be, passion is I mean, it's often overstated, but you just have to want to do these things. And if you continue to pursue these goals and have your, you know, have that as your, you know, moving forward, and then also look for, you know, I won't say that I looked for good people to work with, but, you know, a lot of it was luck. A lot of it was luck. I ended up meeting Ken Norris by accident. I knew I wanted to work with him. My undergraduate advisor, I was walking down the hall and Ken Norris was coming out of his office, and boom, I got to talk to Ken Norris. So there's a bit of, you know, what is that saying? Luck is best for the prepared mind. There's something like that where you got to be lucky, but at the same time, you've got to be ready to take advantage of those opportunities.
Wow, definitely. That is great advice. So hopefully our young scientists out there are writing that down to take that with them into the future. That's fantastic. So Dan, you said that you really study animals at the extremes. And so I assume this research takes you all over the world, everywhere from really, really warm climates, anywhere from really, really cold climates. And so what has been your favorite place, location, continent to do research at?
I both love and hate that question because it's hard for me to pick one place. I would say there's probably three places that I have stolen my heart. I mean, one of them, well, the Antarctic. I first went to, and there's a picture of me in Antarctica with a crab-eater seal. I went to the Antarctic for the first time in 1978 as a postdoc at Scripps. And anybody that goes there, it sort of gets under your skin, and it's hard not to continue to go back there year after. Well, you don't necessarily get to go back every year, but I've been there, I don't know, something like on 25 different expeditions over the years. And the Antarctic is just an amazing place. Having said that, Australia is one of my favorite places. I have made a trip to Australia for a meeting or research almost every year for over 20 years. I have a lot of colleagues and friends in Australia. It's just an amazing place. And then there's the Galapagos. And Galapagos, I always talk about as the Mecca for a biologist. If we have any place that is our cornerstone, certainly of Darwin and evolution, it's the Galapagos. And then, I've only more recently been to Africa, but, how could you not talk about Africa as being a phenomenal place? And I've worked on Cape Fur seals in Africa, but I've mostly gone there for meetings and taken opportunities to travel. And, those are the, I don't know what I say, top 3 or 4 places. But, all of that said, where we live here on Monterey Bay is a pretty phenomenal place. And having grown up in California, grew up in Southern California, Monterey Bay, we often don't realize how amazing and what a unique place this is. I've begun to realize that it is probably the most diverse marine mammal fauna, that the composition of the pinnipeds, the cetaceans, there's a greater diversity here than probably anywhere else in the world. So we live in a pretty amazing place too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have, the Monterey Bay, which is also known as the Serengeti of the sea, right in our backyard. And so, Dan, when you're doing research right in the Monterey Bay or right in our backyard, what animals, you said pinnipeds, cetaceans, and so what animals are you focusing on when you're trying to look at their ecology and their behavior? What animals do you
part of the backbone of my research program has been northern elephant seals, and I started working on them as a graduate student. Bernie LeBoeuf had started the elephant seal program here in the early 70s. I came up and started working on sea otters. And while I was working on sea otters, I started working with Bernie and Leo Ortiz on elephant seals. And when Bernie retired, I inherited the program from him. And so that's been the cornerstone of my research. I've also worked on California sea lions, sea otters. When it's sort of like your first love. That was my dissertation animal. And even though I don't work on sea otters currently, I can't not look at one as I'm walking along West Cliff Drive or off the Marine Lab and look at a sea otter and go, what an amazing little animal. But there's a Galapagos sea lion up there now on the screen. Sea lions and fur seals are one of my favorite critters, and we have both of those off the coast here. But I don't do that much work with cetaceans directly. I work with people who do work with cetaceans. We have an amazing abundance of humpback whales and blue whales. Within the Institute of Marine Sciences, we have Ari Friedlander, who does really amazing research on humpback whales and blue whales. So collectively, we have an excellent group of people. There's Terry Williams, who's got the bottlenose dolphins at the Marine Lab, and Colleen Reichmuth, who does amazing research on cognition and sensory physiology. So we've got a lot of depth that really takes advantage of the amazing diversity of critters we have offshore.
Yeah, and some folks over at UC Santa Cruz got some awesome shout outs by you, so that's really great. And so when you're working with these animals, how much of your work involves technology? Are you using drones, tags, time-lapse cameras? How much of your work does involve technology?
Most of it. I love technology. I tinkered with things as a kid. I never became really an innovator of the technology itself, but I've been on the leading edge of people who apply it. And I always make the, like, here's a picture of a minke whale. And so that's most of what we see. And you know, when all you can see is an animal for like 10% of its time on the surface, how do you then understand what it's doing the rest of the time? Technology has opened that door. This Weddell seal has a satellite tracking device that measures salinity temperature profiles. Technology has allowed us to follow these animals regardless of where they go. An elephant seal will go thousands of miles offshore, diving to thousands of feet deep, over a mile in depth. We could never follow the animal in a ship or diving, obviously. So the technology reports on the animal. The technology records their behavior, records their physiology, and gives us that information back. And so it's an incredible enabler that gives us the ability to answer amazing questions. I was in a conference a week ago on the Ocean Studies Board, and one of the people said, well, you know, we had the same questions we had 30 years ago. And I piped up and said, yeah, but now we can answer them. 30 years ago, we had great questions, but we didn't have the technology to answer those questions. Today, we're increasingly getting that technology, but that's just part of it. You have the technology, but when you create all of these data sets, this tremendous amount of information, you need to be able to analyze it. So the other part of technology is the analytical power in terms of computer power, data, software, analysis systems, computer graphics. All of these tools are absolutely essential to what we do.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. That is absolutely incredible that you are able to track where these animals are going in the ocean, but also able to collect all of this data along with it. And it just sounds like you can really paint an incredible picture of their habitat and maybe even get a glimpse into the ecosystem as a whole. That's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's really, really great. And so, Dan, I can only imagine how many studies that you have been a part of, you know, with using technology and all of these different marine mammals. I bet the list goes on and on and on. But if you could, take a look at your very, very long and incredibly accomplished career, what has been the most memorable part of your career? I know it was you said it was the people that you work with, but if you just look at all of the years, what has been the most memorable part of your career, if you can just pick one moment?
You know, it's probably the first time you see an animal in its environment. And when I first went to the Antarctic and I saw Weddell seals, and I'm sitting there freezing, you know, bundled up, and here's this animal totally comfortable and it's below freezing. I mean, there's a gorilla, which I've never worked on, but we had a meeting in Kenya, and on the way to that meeting, Terry Williams and Jim Estes and I and my wife Mary went and saw gorillas for the first time. When you see animals in their actual environment, this is a southern sea lion. It's very easy to get wrapped up in the technology and get wrapped up in all of them catching them and doing this, that, and the other thing. One of the fun things that I love to do is just to go and sit and watch and not think about anything other than focusing on that animal and sort of, you know, maybe get inside the head of the animal and try and think, okay, I'm a sea lion or I'm a elephant seal. How do I view the world? I had that experience, and it's a challenge because think of the environment we live in and think of the environment they live in. It's totally different. I worked on wolves some years ago with David Meach up in northern Minnesota. And it was such an interesting experience for me because for the first time in my career, I could walk through the northern forests of Minnesota and think like a wolf. I could be walking along and think, oh, there's a deer over there. It comes through the bushes. I could engage with the environment on the same way that a wolf does. It's through the technology that we're doing that for an elephant seal or a fur seal or a humpback whale. And we're increasingly getting that technology where we record the behavior and then using software to give us those insights of how an animal operates in its environment and get our head into the context of how that animal works.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, that's incredible. It's kind of putting yourself in the animal shoes.
Exactly. To say it much more concisely than I did.
No, you provide such great insight, and so it's wonderful to hear from you. So Dan, your career has been absolutely incredible. Just watching these photos play throughout the slideshow, just listening to your advice and insight into your research. It's just absolutely incredible. And unfortunately, it would take maybe about a week to cover all of it in detail, maybe even more. So if folks want to learn more about your research and what you do, where can they go online to learn a little bit more?
Yeah, so we have a lab webpage. You can Google Costa Lab at UCSC. The actual URL is costa.eeb.ucsc.edu.
Mm-hmm.
And also we have the Año Nuevo Reserve website, which is where we have all of the work that's going on up at Año Nuevo. And that's añonuevoreserve.ucsc.edu. And again, you can probably just Google either one of those, UCSC Año Nuevo Reserve or Costa Lab at UCSC. But we do have a lot of information there, and a lot talks about my graduate students and the ongoing projects. But those would be the easiest to get to. And the Año Nuevo website is spectacular. Patrick Robinson has done a tremendous job setting that up, and that one's updated quite frequently with things that are going on. My website's a little slow, but Patrick's on top of the Año Nuevo one.
That's great. We will also put those links down in the video description as well for folks to find those easily. Definitely. So Dan, believe it or not, time is ticking away, and that is actually all the time that we have today. But lucky for us, Dan is actually going to come back to the Seymour Center. He is going to give a full-length, hour-long presentation for our next Virtual Science Sunday in June on June 21st. So more details will be put up on our website, the Seymour Center's website, fairly soon. So keep an eye out for that announcement. I like to think of it as Dan's encore presentation. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in today for today's Labside Chat. Dan, I wish we got to talk to you for, the next 6 hours. But I just want to say thank you to Dan. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. It's really folks like you that make these programs possible. So if you are in the donation or in the position, I do ask that you please consider making a donation to the Seymour Center or becoming a member with us. You can find more information on our website, which is seymourcenter.ucsc.edu, and go ahead and click that Get Involved tab. Again, these links will be in the video description so folks can find them easily. You can also continue to support us by keeping in touch with us. Sign up for our e-newsletter, tell your family and friends about us. We love to have new viewers to these types of programs. And so, again, my name is Jen Cormier. Again, we were able to talk to Dr. Dan Costa today. We hope everyone is staying safe, everyone's staying healthy, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Glad to talk to you guys.